Hey guys, so this is going to be a video addressing 10 things that I wish I knew sooner with my business. So I'm always improving. So at some point there's probably going to be a video in the future of 10 more things that I wish I knew now. But let's get into it. So the first one is getting listed on Google and running local service ads. So these, in my opinion, are probably the best way to advertise online, and they don't really require much work. They just require a little bit of money. So around May of this year, I asked someone from Jiu-Jitsu who did the marketing for the Jiu-Jitsu school, and he recommended that I start an account for Google Local Service and start running ads there, because those come up when someone's just searching for power washers in their area. It's not like a Facebook ad where they're given it to them on their timeline. They have to already be searching for power washing or window washing in order for them to come up, and then there's a button for them to call. So they work much better than other ways you could advertise on the internet. Also, you can have all your reviews there. So I have all 5-star reviews. So those just come up right next to the number to call me. So those ads have worked really well, and they do cost a little bit of money, but they're definitely worth it because they save a lot of time in terms of marketing. So the second is getting registered with the Chamber of Commerce in my local area. So I'm not exactly sure on the returns of this yet because I literally registered like a couple weeks ago. But already I've been invited to several networking events, and there's a lot of people in the area who are pretty influential, and they have a lot of real estate, which could mean a lot of jobs in the future. So again, I'm not exactly sure on the returns of this, but it seems like it'll work out pretty well. So the third is I wish I focused more on social media and growing up my social media presence. So if you have a lot of social media accounts that are all interlinked, this will help a lot with SEO, because if all of them link back to your website, Google just thinks that it is a useful website that a lot of other people are linking to. And also it just makes you look more official if you have a lot of different social media accounts that you've posted on a lot. So up until I think this year, I only had a Facebook for my business, but I've added several more, such as a LinkedIn and a TikTok and this YouTube channel. And I've also beefed up my website a lot. So previously my website was pretty simple, and it looked like okay on the surface, but there wasn't much information on it. So I read a book called They Ask You Answer, and it recommended having a lot of basically like frequently asked questions by customers. And so I wrote a lot of articles on there, and also that was one of the reasons why I made this YouTube channel, was so that I can answer those in a video format because most people don't really read the articles. And then I can just embed those on the website. So if the customer has any questions, they oftentimes won't even have to call me or ask me first. They can find out on my website, and then they'll know before they even call. So the fourth one actually relates back to the first three, and it kind of ties it all together. So I wish I diverted a lot of my marketing efforts away from flyers much earlier. So flyers for a while were really my main marketing method. I was just putting them out on door handles and stuff, like thousands and thousands at a time, which took forever. And I really wish that I had moved towards the other three earlier. So this really changed when I saw an episode of a podcast by Keith Kalfas and Dan Plata, where they were talking about, they called it boots on the ground marketing. So either flyers or door hangers or knocking on doors, anything like that. And they described how it's actually the least effective form of marketing.
Yard signs, doing flyers, doing door knocking, you're using your labor. It feels really cost effective, but we like value ourselves at $0. If we said our time is worth $100 an hour, like that's some of the most expensive marketing we can do in reality, but we just don't count our time, right?
Yeah, I've done that, door hangering tons of neighborhoods and even having people come with me. And at the end of the day, I did all the math and realized that was the dumbest thing ever to go out on foot and paying people with me.
Mm-hmm.
Why did I do that?
It's expensive, but
because even though it may technically be cheaper, my flyers only cost about 6 or 7 cents. It ends up being the most expensive because of all the time that I have to put in. And so once I heard that, I calculated for 1 month last year, because I record all of it, how long I was actually spending on putting out flyers, and it averaged $16 a week, which was ridiculous. So I decided that from then on, I didn't know what marketing methods I would change to, but I knew I needed to change away from flyers, because any amount that I spent on marketing, I was losing way more than that in terms of revenue that I did not make. I will say that I think flyers are good for a beginner who's starting out in their business, because they are very cheap. Like I said, they're only 6 or 7 cents per flyer, and you often don't have much money in the beginning. But after that, you should really start to try to find ways to market more efficiently. So the fifth point is that I wish I had a backup power washer. So last year my power washer would break like relatively frequently, and it was really irritating because each time it broke, I would have to go to a shop to try to get it fixed. Oftentimes they wouldn't be able to take the power washer immediately, so I'd have to wait like a week, and it was a huge pain. But I figured out that if I just have a backup power washer, that'll address like 90% of the problems unless they both break at the same time. Since then, I've just gotten a cheaper power washer, so the cheaper power washers do work just as well, they just don't last as long. So I actually only have one right now, but I know that if it ever breaks, I can just replace it for like $300, and it's not too big of a deal, so I don't have to worry about getting it fixed. Ideally, in the future, I would want to have a much more expensive power washer that's going to last a lot longer, but the two that I've tried have not worked out very well. So right now I'm using a cheaper power washer. I'm hoping to find like a more expensive one that lasts longer in the future. But at the very least, I wish that earlier on I had a backup power washer. So the sixth thing that I wish I knew earlier in my business was I wish I charged the customers if I was going to take the screens out. So earlier on, I didn't even think about the screens. I was just like, oh, well, if they have screens, I'll just take them out. That's just part of the job. And I never even factored that into the price, to be honest. And then it was in the window cleaning blueprint by Keith Kalfas that I listened to on Audible. And he mentioned screens. And then once he mentioned it, I realized how much time I was spending on those jobs, just taking out the screens, and it wasn't even part of the job. And I never priced for that. So once I read that, I every time after that ask the customer if they have screens and if the customer is willing to take out screens themselves, because I can do it if they don't want to take out the screens, but I do have to charge for it because that's still my labor, even though it's not cleaning windows. So the seventh point that I wish I knew earlier about running my business is that I wish I charged more for second and third story windows than I did for first story. So this was from a book, I think it was by John Baxter, called Straight Talk About Window Cleaning Bidding. And he mentioned that oftentimes window washers will charge more for the second and third story windows because there's more ladder work involved. And then after I had read that, there was two jobs that I did like back to back, and they were both similar size houses, but one had like several second story windows and the other one had no second story windows. And the one with second story windows took just a lot more time, and so I realized that it was definitely worth it to price those higher in my quotes. So before that, it was just all the same price, which didn't really make any sense because it takes a lot longer to do second and third story windows. So the eighth thing that I wish I knew earlier was that I wish I registered as an S corp. So I got registered as an S corp this year. For those who don't know, there's a lot of tax advantages for registering as an S corp. I'm not going to go over all of them, but you can take distributions on an S corp, which you can't if you're just like a sole proprietor. In the distributions, you don't have to pay the self-employment tax on it. There is a limit, but it's a bit complicated for this video. But I'm going to owe a lot less in taxes this year because I registered this year, and I wish I did that earlier because I paid a lot in taxes for this past year. So the ninth is that from the beginning I was doing in-person estimates, and then eventually I finally switched to all virtual estimates just over the phone. So for a while I thought this helped me sell better, but then at a certain point I realized how much extra time it took to not only do the estimate itself, but I had to drive there. I had to normally change out of whatever I was in. And so sometimes I had to shower before if I was like sweaty or whatever. So it was really a pain, and not to mention all the mileage that I put on my truck doing in-person estimates. And once I switched to virtual estimates, my sales pretty much stayed the same. I think it was still around like 75% of the estimates I booked. So it really wasn't benefiting me at all to do in-person estimates. And so that's something I wish I had switched to a lot earlier. So the 10th and final point is that I wish I got my gutter cleaning tool earlier. So this is something I found, I think, on a YouTube video, and then I looked it up on Amazon, and I just realized, wow, that is really helpful. So previously I was just cleaning the gutters out by hand entirely, and then I had to move the ladder very frequently. But it has like an extension pole, and then you can pull the debris, and then there's like you switch it, and then it's got another side where you push it underneath like the bars in the gutter. So you can go like several feet on either side, and it's really helped to cut down on the time it takes to clean gutters. So that's it for now, guys. That was me going over 10 things that I wish I knew earlier in my business. So make sure to like and subscribe. Thanks.